Hey, all my webheads out there, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0 and fans. I'm your host, Mike Spiderslayer, getting ready to bring you Spidey Classics. That's right, fans. This is a series that's been around a long time. I just haven't done an episode in a long time, but I'm going to bring it back because I really miss reading the old Spider-Man comic books, right? And it makes me feel like, man, I miss old school comic books. This is the reason why I fell in love with comics to begin with, right? Today, we're going to be talking about Spectacular Spider-Man issue 176, 177. Now, some fans of mine on my Facebook group page pointed this out, that there's this villain called Corona, okay? And this book was basically next to nothing, but on eBay, it's hitting prices as high as like $20, $30 for these particular two issues. And I'm like, that's ridiculous based off of everything that's going on in the world. I mean, that's insane. But I wanted to see really what this story is about, right? Is it this villain who's actually causing a virus to get everybody sick? Like, what's the story about? So we're going to tackle that here on Spidey Classics. So the writer here is Kurt Busiek. He was a guest writer. This book was made in 1991, and Sal Buscema was the artist in this book. So the artwork in this book looks pretty good. We get to see Spider-Man, in his over-exaggerated poses. This is when the time that, Todd McFarlane was around, and people were trying to copy his style a little bit with the bigger eyes and spaghetti webbing and stuff like that. But yeah, just the old school feel of comics makes me go, wow. This is the reason why I fell in love with comics to begin with. Just the ads that are inside. There's a 1-800 number to call to save Mary Jane. Just all kinds of great stuff in here that's like, wow, man, this is why comics are so good and why I like them to begin with. But going to the story. So first off, we see people wind up getting sick in New York, okay? And we don't know why. And then all of a sudden there is this mysterious woman, and she has this aura-like power around her, and she wants to get back at her brother, and her brother is by the name of Dr. Forrester, who is pretty much above the law. He uses his money and his wealth to buy judges so he can conduct experiments and things like that. And at first, Spider-Man is a sucker. He tries to save this villain by the name of Corona, and he's saying that that he forced her into this containment unit and tried changing her into something that she did not want to be, that she was kidnapped. And she's being changed on a mutant cellular molecular level or whatnot. So Spider-Man buys this story. Literally, we find out is the reason why everyone is getting sick in this city is because when Dr. Forrester put her in this containment unit, there was this filtration system that he used from the main water supply. So all these chemicals basically spilled into the main water supply, and when people are drinking the water, they wind up getting what is called the Soho fever. So that's what they call the virus in this book. It's called the Soho fever, not the coronavirus, but she happens to call herself Corona because she is responsible for everything anyway. But we find out in this book that it's all a ploy to trick Spider-Man to get her powers to the ultimate level. Really what happened is Dr. Forrester kind of backed out of the project halfway through the transformation process. And what happens is Corona is trying to get to the point of full power level. So at the end of 177 or 176, I think it is, Corona makes her way back to Dr. Forrester's lab, okay, to try to gain that full power level. Dr. Forrester is a very greedy man. So what happens, in order to be considered a hero, he's like, oh, I'm going to come up with an antidote to save everybody, okay? So at the same time, Spider-Man is caught between a rock and a hard place. Supposedly, we don't know what's going to happen to Corona if she doesn't get herself to full level. She could experience a meltdown, could contaminate the city or whatnot, but at the same time, they need this antidote to save people's lives. And one of the people that are affected is actually Mary Jane, okay? So we get to see Spider-Man doesn't know what to do, but this woman seems like she's dying right in front of him. So out of desperation, Corona zaps Spider-Man. Spider-Man tries to dodge out of the way, obviously winds up hitting the antidote. It explodes, it goes down the drain, and then we get to see Corona go nuclear, basically. And what happens is she turns into some like hobgoblin, demo goblin like person, right? So it's totally insane what you see, what happens to her at the end. And that was the end of issue 176. So in 177, the story continues here with her trying to get revenge on Spider-Man, and they do this big battle. She doesn't have this aura anymore. She just looks like this demon-like creature. And you get a recap, obviously, what happens. This is only a 2-issue part, and we get to see basically Peter now get infected with this Soho fever as well, because he's been doing battle against Corona. He's done all these scratches, has happened to him, and so he's really, really sick, and he gets worse as the issue progresses. Dr. Forrester and Harry Osborn wind up working together here to, again, create another antidote to solve everything. Harry is under tremendous pressure as well, because not only is Mary Jane infected, but his son Normie Osborn, is infected as well. It's really great to see some of these characters in here, like Liz and Norman Osborn or Harry Osborn together. Mary Jane is in here as well. So it's cool to see these characters. So again, Spider-Man tries to make a promise to Corona saying, I'm not going to let you get captured. I know you don't want to become a science experiment, but please, can you help the people in this city get well again? Otherwise, people are going to die. But at the end of the day, Spider-Man kind of fails, right? He basically winds up getting this woman captured, and she gets taken away from her brother, okay? But they did succeed. Dr. Forrester and Harry Osborn came up with an antidote together, and everyone wound up being cured at the end. So it was kind of a win-lose situation. Spider-Man couldn't keep his promise to keep Corona safe from her evil brother, but they wound up getting an antidote to save the day. And at the end of the issue, you're left cliffhanging with Harry Osborn actually hearing voices in his head, which indicates that maybe that the Green Goblin is going to return. So what did I think about this book? The one thing that I did think about this story was, it's kind of crazy that this book kind of exists to begin with, but it really made me appreciate old school comics. The writing that you see in these books, you just don't see anymore. Now, I know later 90 books suffered, right? But here in the early 90s, the writing was still really good, and I just enjoyed it. It made me fall in love with comics all over again after reading this. Just, again, the ads, how they solicit their next stories, the mail, just everything in here. I would love to see modern day comics kind of go back to this writing style again. And even if they went back to this normal newsprint paper, it would keep the cost low. There was nothing wrong with it. I just really enjoyed the story here, and it felt like I got a story arc completed in 2 issues, where in today's comic world, this story would have dragged on for 4 to 6 issues long. So I had a blast with it, and even though it wasn't a super main story, I love this, man. This was great. So I'm going to give this book probably a 4.25 out of 5 stars. The art wasn't perfect in it, but I did really enjoy it. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Spidey Classics. Look more for this series in the near future. And if there's any particular Spider-Man book that you want me to discuss, you can leave it in the comments below. So guys, if you like my content, I'll leave you some more right here on the side. Until next time, this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye.